Thank you all for joining us for this Art in the Libraries virtual program. I'm Sally Brown, Exhibits Coordinator for WVU Libraries, and Undefeated, Canvassing the Politics of Voter Suppression Since Women's Suffrage. I'm the lead curator for that online and now print exhibition. I'm honored to turn this over to Carmen Bose. Carmen is the Development Manager with West Virginia Women Work, a statewide 501c3 nonprofit where she is focused on diversity and inclusion of women in non-traditional fields. Carmen holds a master's degree in English education from WVU and has spoken in a variety of settings. From her presentation titled, "Why the Trades Are the Key to Reentry," delivered to nearly 100 female inmates at the United States Penitentiary in Hazleton, West Virginia, and over 75 female patients at the WVU Center for Hope and Healing, to a recent feature in a story on NPR's Marketplace called "Training Women in Construction and the Employers Who Hire Them," Carmen brings her exuberant energy to any room or Zoom to which she's invited. She's a West Virginia native, and in her free time, you can find her on an outdoor adventure in this beautiful state or working on a recent piece for her blog, seedssuretogrowcom. Welcome, Carmen.
Thanks so much, Sally, and thank you everyone for joining us on International Women's Day, one of the best days. I'm so happy to be here with everyone, and I'm so grateful to WVU Libraries and to the Morgantown chapter of National Organization for Women for initiating this, and then also to the West Virginia Women Vote Coalition as well. So before I really jump into the meat of this, I want to talk a little bit about my background. I'm originally from Philippi, West Virginia, which is about an hour south of Morgantown. And I've been in Morgantown for the last 13 years, so this is pretty much home at this point. And then, as Sally said, my current role is Development Manager with West Virginia Women Work, and we are focused on the education, employment, and economic equity for all women. And in that, to fulfill that mission, we train and place women into non-traditional fields. And then another sort of offshoot is that we also provide technical assistance on the recruitment and retention of women into those fields for organizations and industry partners all across the country. So before I dive into all the awesome work that we do, I want to take it back to another woman who was incredible. I was raised by a single mom. Her name was Kelly, and she is the hardest worker I've ever known. She worked multiple jobs the majority of her life to support myself and my little brother. And somehow, when I turned 16 and I got my driver's license, she was able to buy me a car, which is a tremendous feat for a single parent. The car cost $500, and it was a 1985 Buick Century, two-tone, olive and mint green. It was so ugly. It was boxy. It was loud. It was a V8, so it just guzzled gas. I could barely get from one place to another without running out of gas. So she bought me this car, and mind you, I attended high school in like the age of the Escalade. So I was the coolest person in the school parking lot. Okay, so I had this car. The only requirement for having this car and owning it was that I had to pay for my own insurance and gasoline. To do that, I would, of course, need a job. And at that point, I had no work experience at all. And my Uncle Charles, who is a contractor, offered me a job. And without a whole lot of people beating down my door to come work for them, I, of course, took that job. I said yes. So I worked weekends and summers for him, making $10 an hour, which is way more than the people that were working at the Dairy King were making. And yeah, I was basically diving headfirst into hard labor. I worked with grown men who were not terribly couth. And, you know, I did the job and I learned the skills. I carried shingles and cinder blocks and sheets of drywall. I measured and cut and dug and climbed giant ladders onto roofs. I constructed and dismantled, and I did math problems I never thought I would have to do. But I did it. I did that job. And at that point, even though I was in a high school that was attached to a vocational training center, and even though I was doing this work on the weekends and on the summers, it never, not once, crossed my mind that this was a career that I should pursue. You know that the hallway in your school, the dusty one with like the shop off of one of the side and the garage off the other side, and there are lots of grinding sounds. I never felt like I could walk down that hallway. It just wasn't even an option. I didn't even feel any kind of exclusion or anything like that. It just never even crossed through my mind that I could go do this thing. And that leads me into my talk, women taking up space in non-traditional fields. So today I'm going to answer 4 important questions for you. The first is what does non-traditional mean? The second, what does taking up space mean? The third, why does it matter that women take up space in non-traditional fields? And number 4, what are we doing about it? All right, so first, what does non-traditional mean? So the textbook definition of non-traditional says that basically if a certain population makes up less than 25% of the workforce in any one industry, that becomes non-traditional for that population. So based on that, most occupations were at some point considered non-traditional for women. Now, I'll use a pretty good example for Morgantown. So for instance, 100 years ago, a bartender would have likely been male. And now women make up the majority of that workforce. Another important thing to note when talking about just employment of women generally is that many of the care-related fields, meaning childcare, healthcare, anything kind of rooted with that taking care of another person, they were all historically worked by women. And most women were not paid or were extremely underpaid in those positions. So even though women weren't necessarily like going to work, they were still working and just receiving very little or no compensation for their time and effort. Okay, so that's what non-traditional is. Next question. What does taking up space mean? So this one's a little longer of an answer because most people aren't comfortable with this sort of thought. So I was discussing this with my husband, and he said to me that for him, taking up space has a negative connotation, like the phrase itself. And he's right. It does have a negative connotation. If you say, oh, that guy Bob, he's just taking up space, what that usually means is that Bob isn't actually doing a whole lot. So based on that conversation with my male husband, I wanted to really get in there and define what taking up space means in the context of women in non-traditional fields and really women in the world. Okay, so women are taught from the smallest, tiniest, most innocent moments of our lives to take up as little physical space as possible. We're taught that small equals beautiful, or that small equals happy. We are taught to cross our legs daintily under our chairs. We're taught to hold our hands in our laps, not spread out. We're taught to make ourselves compact. And there's a much larger discussion happening around this idea of taking up physical space in the greater women's equality community. If you're interested in that, there's tons of awesome articles and essays written about women occupying spaces. And so I'm not going to dive into all that. I'm going to get a little more specific. But you should go read about that if you're intrigued. Okay, so the issue with not taking up space in non-traditional fields is that literally it isn't an option to try to be compact in a situation where you're doing hard physical work. And don't misunderstand me, women of all shapes and sizes can do this hard physical labor. They already are in a lot of the traditionally female industries. So nurses literally lift human beings. Retail workers unload trucks, stand on their feet for hours and hours. Food service workers carry around racks of heavy glasses and move big bulging bags of garbage back to the dumpster. So what I mean when I say that it's not an option to be compact is that to have success and avoid injury in these hard labor positions, you need to use your body, and you need to use it without feeling the need to shrink it in unnatural ways, which is what is often culturally put on women. In these roles, you need to be powerful, and you need to be putting energy into the work you're doing, not into this concept of being small. So besides the actual amount of space that a woman takes up, there's also this whole issue of how we move within and around things and people. So women learn from culture that when crossing paths with a man at the grocery store, we should swerve our carts so that the man has a clear path. Seriously, test it out sometime when you go to the grocery store. Men, pay attention, see how many women will get out of your way just naturally. Women, see how few men move out of your way. And also pay attention to your natural inclination to get out of the way. So again, this moving out of the way is really an impossibility in the trades. If a woman is carrying a sheet of drywall and like a man comes at her, just walking towards her, she can't be like, whoa, and move this huge piece of drywall, somebody could get hurt. Okay, so now that we've talked about physical space and how we move within it, let's talk about some of the other kinds of spaces that women need to occupy to be successful in non-traditional fields. So we've got this very concrete example of taking up space, and now we're kind of moving into these more complex ideas. So taking up space socially. Women are taught that when having a conversation with a man, we should make the conversation as easy as possible and as pleasant as possible for that man. So we should have plenty of anecdotes and pleasantries and kind of like laugh and be engaged and pay really good attention to this man to sort of just help this discussion glide. And when women email a man or when women are requesting something of a man, we're taught that we should say things like, no pressure, or, bear with me, this is a long one. If it isn't too much trouble, could you just possibly send me a copy of the latest report? It is due on Monday, so having it by Friday would be a huge help. Thanks so much, Carmen. Instead of something a little more concise that one man might send to another man, which is like, hi there, Bob. This is a reminder that I need a copy of the latest report by Friday at the latest. Thanks, see. So you can see the difference there and kind of the level of energy that has to go into one of those versus the other one. It's about twice as long when I look at it on the paper. So the problem is that in the trades, communication is key. Basically, you often have to deliver a message in the most efficient way possible, you know, because if somebody is coming at you with a huge chunk of rebar and you don't, or if you're coming at someone with a huge chunk of rebar, you don't have time to be like, excuse me, sir, would you mind letting me put this rebar over here? You have to be like, hey, rebar coming at you. And a lot of times when women are efficient in that way, they are tagged as a certain expletive that starts with the letter B. All right, next, taking up space emotionally. Women learn culturally that we should be humble, that we shouldn't talk about ourselves. So when we do something well and someone compliments us, we are taught we should kind of just like shrug that off. Oh, it was nothing. No problem. All good. And so then we aren't owning our successes. And then on top of that, we're also taught that we should be caring and helpful and go out of our way to help people around us. These are culturally good characteristics for women to adopt. And so then we're maximizing other people's successes. So we're both minimizing our own successes and maximizing those around us. And so in that situation, we often disappear and the people around us shine. All right, finally, taking up space mentally. Women are taught to self-doubt. We are taught that we should think and think and think about something before we actually take action. And even then, if it isn't perfectly executed, we are immediately stupid and incompetent. So this sort of concept of self-doubt manifests itself in two ways. One, women are just literally not allowed to fail. And two, we become apology robots, where we just apologize for everything, even often when there's literally nothing to apologize for. And so this also means that we try fewer things, because if we can't succeed, why try? And this is especially detrimental because on the job site, in most spaces, women are able to watch other women try things. And when those women can do that thing, then they feel encouraged to do it. But in the trades, there are so few women that if you aren't willing to try, then literally there's no one else telling you you can do it. It just feels like an absolute impossibility. All right. Now, all of those different ways of taking up space and trying not to take up space takes a tremendous amount of energy for a woman. And this energy, because it's already being pushed in these other spaces, it isn't being aimed at how to do a craft, how to learn to do this trade that you're focused on. It is being taken away from your desire to be a good employee. It's energy that is essentially being unnecessarily wasted every minute of every hour of every day that you work. All right, so now we have what taking up space means. So question number 3, why do women need to be taking up space physically, socially, emotionally, and mentally in the trades? It's pretty simple. West Virginia Women Work did not get into the business of non-traditional fields because we just wanted to show that we could win an arm wrestling contest against Bob. We got into it because these are living wage jobs for women in a state that doesn't have that many living wage jobs. So, last question, how do we fix it? Basically, we try to interrupt that pattern. So, simple, put more women into trades jobs. And that's why West Virginia Women Work is the key to this problem. We are good at this. Each year, we graduate 100 to 120 women statewide from our 4 Step Up for Women training sites. 2 of the sites are focused on manufacturing, 2 are focused on construction. And of those graduates, we have about a 90% placement rate of women into non-traditional jobs. We are proud of that number. The reason that number is so high is because we aren't really interested in sugarcoating the realities of entering a non-traditional field. So we have our hands-on training, the manufacturing and the construction, but then in addition to that, our curriculum addresses things like communication skills, assertiveness training, strength training, sexual harassment prevention, employer point of view, where you really kind of get in there and understand what an employer is looking for in a good employee. And then finally, how to grow your support system personally, so that when you're on the job, you don't feel so isolated and alone. And so because of our curriculum and our hardworking staff, we are able to teach women to take up space, and then we send them to work. And the more women there are out on the job, the less energy each individual woman has to waste, and the more work we can get done. Thank you so much. Questions?
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. That was one of the best contextual presentations I've ever heard. Thank you so much, Carmen. And you're doing wonderful things with West Virginia Women Work. And I would love to have some questions in the chat for Carmen. Or go ahead and unmute your microphone, raise your hand. There's a lot of you out there. Thank you all for being here.
I'll jump in if you don't mind. Carmen, excellent job. This is so wonderful to hear what you do and how you've been such an instrumental catalyst in uplifting so many women. And so having a few years of feedback and data, how has the field, maybe mostly masculine perceptions, received the input of wonderful women who are working in those?
Like all things, change is slow sometimes, but we've actually been working on this problem for 20 years now as an organization. We've been around since 2000, and so we have some really incredible industry partners who help us to change the dialogue that's out there. And we also work really closely with a lot of the unions and the registered apprenticeship programs, and they're really open and excited to have women, especially the iron workers. Really, they're just so progressive and ready for the change, not just locally but also on a national level. They actually went ahead and did like a maternity leave policy, which is nationwide. So they're making some huge strides towards kind of just changing what that landscape looks like.
Judith, did you want to jump in? I see you unmuted.
Yep. Yeah, no, I'm just wondering what's most getting in the way. Well, first of all, thank you. That was inspiring and heartening, and also raises a lot of questions. No, this is beautiful. So what still gets in your way most? And related to that more specifically, what, if anything, is West Virginia University, the School of Business and Economics, the people who I would think would be just rushing to help you in any way they could, what are they doing or not doing?
So as far as what's getting in our way, I think culture is still really challenging here. You know, it's really politicized what we do. And so it's really hard in the landscape of West Virginia right now sometimes to just like do a cold call and show up on a job site and be taken seriously, you know. But I think the biggest thing that really can help with that is introductions on a higher level. So if there are, you know, big companies that you know, the College of Business and Economics already kind of works with on a regular basis, high level introductions, because really changing the culture of a company always comes from the top. So working with the people on a high level and then trying to get them on our side, and then we can start talking about how to implement real plans of change to get some more diversity in these companies, I think is probably one of the biggest things we can do.
So could I just follow up? I mean, so for instance, have you had meetings with people at the School of Business and Economics?
I have not yet.
So is that, no, I'm not asking that like, oh my God, why didn't you? I mean, being hopefully, but is that like an impossibility, or is it?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I will send you my email in a private message.
Okay.
You're Judith, right?
Right, Judith Stitzel, right.
Okay.
Right, right. Because this is, I mean, I've been following your work actually since one of the earliest directors, whose name I'm going to be embarrassed to say I don't remember now, but it'll come to me in a minute. And it's so incredible, the work that you're doing, and that we should be, and are, many of us, so grateful for. That there's these huge, they're building a huge building on Beechhurst, as I guess you know.
Yes, it looks
There's
beautiful from Westover.
a load of money going into economics.
Yep.
Some of it needs to be coming your way.
I think that's exactly right.
So perhaps we can think of some ways of moving that forward. I don't want you to think I have the power to do it, but I
Oh
certainly
yeah,
have the energy.
Okay, all right. That sounds great. I would love to get together and maybe we can have a one-on-one Zoom meeting.
Okay, sounds good.
I have a question in the chat. I shared a big project idea with a man and he said I was ambitious. I felt insulted. I felt like if I was a man, it would have been a compliment or something expected. I can see how our gender impacted that conversation. Any thoughts about how to respond in situations like this? I've certainly been there.
So the whole concept of being ambitious is all about tone, right? So I'm sure it was like, wow, you're ambitious. In that situation, I try to fall back on the choose your battles mentality, which is not an excuse to get lazy in our activism, but it is, especially in this climate here, it's really important to kind of ride it out. So in that situation, I would take that as a face value compliment. And I would just be like, thank you, I am ambitious. And then once you do that, they're really kind of stuck because when you claim it and you own it, it's yours now. And they can't use that in that sort of condescending way that the tone might have suggested.
I have something just to add. The Janice Gunnell,
Janice Gunnell,
that Melinda Perrone mentioned, she was the former leader for many, many years. And Millie Carlin, to my knowledge, is still the head of the board of directors. She keeps trying to get someone else to take the position, but because there is a board for West Virginia Women Work, and you know, it's a great organization. I'd love to hear more. I'm sure the others would too, about your programs and your current students, and how do people apply to even get in your program, and you know, what kinds of jobs do they end up with when they get out? I mean, you said manufacturing, and I think, was it carpentry or construction or not?
Yeah, so I'll walk through the basics. We would love to have folks go ahead and apply to be on our board. I'm just going to share my email with everyone in the chat because I'm not afraid. So if you're interested in applying to be on our board, or Judith, if you want to get a hold of me to schedule a Zoom, or if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me an email. But I'll go ahead and go through the basic structure of our program. So we have two different programs: the Step Up for Women Construction Training Program and the Step Up for Women Advanced Manufacturing Program. And actually, Melinda, who commented and said, Janice Gunnell, she's a program coordinator for one of our manufacturing programs. So basically, the program, each cohort lasts 11 to 12 weeks, and we do the hands-on training. So for manufacturing, it's getting them on the machines and working with, I don't know as much about that, so Melinda can judge me. But you're getting them in the shop, working with the machines, learning how to use the measuring tools that are really fine and detailed. And then for construction, we cycle through carpentry, electrical, and plumbing. But then outside of that, of the hands-on, our programs are pretty similar. And we cycle through, like I said, the communication and the sexual harassment prevention and all of that. But we also do lots of other things like resume building and mock interviews. And we go on tours to different job sites and to different possible employer locations. And then we also have guest speakers come back and talk to the class. So women who are out there doing it, we have them come back. They talk to the women in the classes, and that kind of shows these new, fresh people, that this is an option for them and that they can really get out there and thrive. So Melinda, did I miss anything? I think that's a pretty good breakdown, but basically the way that you apply is you can just go to our website. We have links to both of our programs on our website, and right now our manufacturing program is paused because of COVID-19. So it'll be a little while for that one. But then the construction program is still running, and we just started a class actually today. So the next one won't start until fall. Towards the end of August, and we are currently taking applications for that. So I'll go ahead and throw that site there too.
And we had a question, do you accept trans women?
Oh, yes. As long as you identify as female, you're in.
And then we had another question, unless I was interrupting you.
Nope, you're good.
Do you have a relationship with Chamber of Commerce or Opportunity West Virginia? I respect the pick your battles, but this can be very decisive for women of color.
No doubt. We actually, I don't think we do. I would love to talk to either of those or both of those organizations. Danielle, I think Danielle and I have met many times. Yes, Danielle, please email me.
So Carmen?
Yes.
Are there maybe one or two or three women who've been through the program already, having gained the confidence and perhaps even the jobs, are particularly comfortable, even though it's not very comfortable necessarily to talk to strangers, but who would be would be impressive with the people who might normally maybe just put you to the side, who have gained enough, I mean, they're all impressive, but I mean, who have gained the comfort level.
Oh yes, we call those women our superstars. No, of course, not all the women, because there are all different types of women and people. Not everyone is super comfortable in these kinds of settings, but we have several ladies who are, and of all different ages and backgrounds, and who work in all different situations too. So we have, do you want me to name specific names?
Oh, no, but I'm just thinking, if we could identify some people maybe who just would be willing, but didn't know they would be willing, within the business of economics or Chamber of Commerce, and actually say, would you be willing? We have someone who we think you would be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Able to suggest some people, and you would come, and other people who would. Okay, no, because the more that we can be ready to call somebody's bluff.
Oh yeah, and these women are not bluffing. They all go out and do it every day.
Right. Okay, no, that's just.
All right, any other questions for me?
I have a question. How do you work with any of the CTEs around the state? So like maybe when students are in the 8th grade, so they can start with those different programs that we have in the K through 12 programs, mostly high school students?
So we don't work with high school students. We have done a few presentations in high schools, but because you have to be 18 or older to take a job in the trades for the most part, our whole goal is to put women in jobs with our programs. So we really our eligibility guidelines are you have to be 18 and older and have or will have by the end of the program a GED or high school diploma.
So I understand that, but I guess let me reword my question. So when students are looking at possibly going through to MTech in different fields, you say that you have a presentation that you give to students, but is there something like once they leave those programs, that once they graduate from high school and they want to further, maybe we can have that partnership between you and Department of Ed?
I love that idea. And no, we do not have that currently, but that is an awesome idea.
Mhm.
With all things with nonprofits, we are all very bogged down in our roles. So new ideas, it's a lot of times, even if we have the idea, it's really hard to kind of push it over and get it going in a regular way. But that seems like something that's kind of a no-brainer. I think it would be really doable. So
Do a email introduction to at least spark that conversation, and then you guys can take it on from there.
that would be beautiful. Thank you. Any other questions?
So
Partnership possibilities?
anyone within the university at the moment, at any level or in any department, or anyone who you are working with or that has sought you out?
No. I mean, well, WVU libraries.
Right. Okay. What department or who would be? I mean, if you could imagine who would be most useful at this time, in addition to the libraries, which is very important.
I think WVU facilities, just as a possible employer, would be awesome. I can't remember what they are called on the back end, but just all of those kind of manual labor positions. It'd be really cool to work with the people who do the hiring there and try to create a pipeline, because there are a lot of jobs there. WVU hospitals, maintenance, and whatever they do to kind of manage those big facilities would be awesome too, because I know WVU hospitals is just spreading across the state. So that could be an even bigger partnership that would create openings for women all over the state. And yeah, the education department. The education department is awesome, especially in building curriculum and trying to get out into the high schools, because you can talk to guidance counselors all day, but it takes more than just a guidance counselor to get people thinking about different career paths. So the folks who are going to go and be teachers, that would be a cool connection as well. The Women's Resource Center, I actually had an intern who was kind of involved with them a few years ago, and she was awesome, but even just like speaking in those classes and trying to create, yeah, there are so many possibilities.
So do you just not have the time? I mean, do you need more people on your staff to be contacting these people, or do you feel uneasy contacting these people, or both?
I don't feel uneasy. I've only been in this role since May of last year, so I'm working on developing things, but we didn't have a development manager before me. So,
Okay.
so I'm trying to just keep pushing and kicking it open.
Wow. Well, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. But yes, I'm open to all of these. I will talk to just about anyone, honestly. I'm excited and have the energy, and our organization is doing such good work, and it's really cool to see the women. I mean, their lives really change. They go from struggling to thriving, and it makes you motivated, So.
Actually, I kind of have a follow-up question to that. Do you offer kind of like counseling services, or does it just naturally happen because it's a cohort and it's a support system, or is there some sort of kind of like working through mental health?
So we have this sort of curriculum that we work from that kind of addresses a lot of the like support system confidence issues that kind of happen for women. We don't have counselors on staff, but each of our program coordinators we have pretty small classes. So it's only like 10 to 15 people tops. And so this really amazing relationship builds between the coordinator and the student. And then of course, between the students and other students. And so by the time that they're sort of launching out there into the world, they have a really sort of beautiful network that they've built. And it's not a huge network, but it's enough to kind of thrust them out there and have them do pretty well. But we did recently hire a peer recovery coach who works out of our Charleston office to work with folks who are in recovery. And she is creating this beautiful list of resources and psychologists and social workers and all these different people to try to basically have someone to call no matter what the situation is. So.
I happen to have a question. I don't actually know if you can hear me right now.
I can.
Okay. I apologize because I missed the first half of the meeting. So you may have answered my question already. The question about West Virginia women work being connected to high school education opportunities got me thinking. Has West Virginia Women Work established any connections with formerly incarcerated women looking to reestablish themselves in the workforce?
We have. I spoke at Hazleton Prison about a year ago to almost 100 women about how construction is a really great answer to anyone who has a past that isn't squeaky clean. Because most people who are hiring in construction really don't care. As long as you're showing up every day now and you're good now, you know, they really don't have the same reservations that a lot of other industries do. So yeah, we're constantly doing that. We also worked with, I am not going to remember the name of this organization, but it was through WVU. It's a prison, I don't remember, I'm sorry. But we work with this one group where they simulate the process of re-entry for people who have been incarcerated. And that was really informative. And I think there's more partnerships that, or more opportunities there. Do you have any other ideas about that?
Me personally, off the bat, no.
Okay.
I have family members who have been previously incarcerated, and I know that they have had struggles with reestablishing themselves in the workforce. So I know that that's a thing that people deal with.
Yes. Well, yeah, if anybody has any connections to any organizations that work with people who are trying to re-enter, feel free to reach out to me because that is definitely a space that we're interested in answering that particular problem. We definitely work with people who are in recovery, and a lot of the people who are in recovery have been incarcerated. So we already kind of deal with a lot of those same issues and barriers to employment and all that.
Awesome.
Wow. Hi, can you remind us again of your, did you go to WVU or your training or?
Yeah, so I went to WVU. I got my undergrad in English and a master's in English education. But whenever I finished, it was the year that everybody went on strike. and lots of other personal stuff happened that year too. But basically, it wasn't a super friendly environment to go get a job in. And so I kind of just started looking around for other opportunities, and this job presented itself. And I was a coordinator before I moved into this development manager role. So I've been with Women Work for a few years now, and just had changed roles last May.
Yeah. Yep.
Other questions?
Kabir, K. Barker, no, you can be from the surrounding states as long as you're willing to be in this area enough to attend class, which is pretty intensive. It's 4 days a week, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So as long as you're here and able to attend class without it totally like sinking your ship, you're welcome to apply to the program. You don't have to be a West Virginia resident.
Do you have private funding? I mean, do you have grants? Have you been able to?
We write competitively for grants. That's one of my biggest roles in what I do now. And so we have grants from some foundations. We also have some funding through the Department of Labor and the Department of Highways. And so we kind of just find stuff and go for it. And so we're actually able to provide our training completely free to our students. So that's, I can't believe I didn't mention that until right now.
Right. No, that's
That's an important piece of information.
But you don't have any grants from the university yet, from the WVU Foundation or any of
We
that?
do not. We do not.
Do you also help the women with getting equipment and things they need for the classes or the work?
Yeah, so we provide support services. So those can look like we buy work clothes, steel-toed boots. We buy $100 worth of tools towards whatever job they are interested in pursuing. And in addition to that, we give them a mileage reimbursement for getting to and from class. And we also sometimes will make an exception for, like, if they have some fines that they need paid off, or something like that, just to get them to push over those barriers that are stopping them from being able to maintain employment.
It's amazing what you do. You're really amazing. I mean, yeah, and please don't hear any of our, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? How we don't think that I think any of this or what you would have done it already. But
oh yeah, I mean, and really it's because every single person who works here is so motivated and driven to do the work we do and to do it well. That's really where it comes from. You know, each of our coordinators is just so involved and excited to do the work, and it's hard work. It's a humongous job, and they're so enthusiastic and motivated.
What would you like to see most come from this session that you have just provided us with?
Well, the talk of all these possible partnerships is very exciting. But beyond that, just for people to keep getting the word out about the organization, make those introductions, throw me an email. I am an avid email checker. I stay really up on all of the communication, and even more than that, just I'm hoping that some minds have been changed to include this as an option for women, not just like, oh, women are tough, but as a real, this could be a life path for women.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Beth and I put the link to donate to West Virginia Women Work in the chat box. And lots of things. Does the program or yourself have an Instagram or social media? Go ahead. A lot of women's rugby girls are here, and we would love to shout out such a great program.
Yes, we have an Instagram. It's just at WV Women Work. And then we also have a Facebook page for both the Step Up, the Step Up for Women Construction Training Program, the Step Up for Women Advanced Manufacturing Program, Step Up AMP. There you go. Melinda's sharing it in the chat. And then we also have a page for our organization, West Virginia Women Work, on Facebook. And I think that's all of them. Thank you so much, rugby ladies, for showing up to talk about some tough ladies.
That is really rad. Yes. Thank you. Anybody else have questions for Carmen? This has been a really wonderful discussion. Thank you all so much. Thank you to Morgantown Now and West Virginia Women Vote Coalition, and obviously West Virginia Women Work, and Carmen and Beth for being the silent technology partner. We're going to put a little link to a survey in the chat box if you can fill it out if you have a minute. And our next virtual program is March 19th. Don't Throw It Out, a discussion about documenting women in our new feminist archives at the West Virginia Regional History Center with Judith, who's here, and I'm not sure if Carol and Lori are. But thank you everyone so much. Thank you, Carmen. You're getting lots of love in the chat box. This was a wonderful presentation and program. I'm so happy to have it with libraries. Thank you.